Good morning, Year 4. I hope you had a fantastic weekend and that you're ready for another week of fractions in maths. Now, there's a couple of resources that you will need today that are on your home learning document. So you've got your fraction wall. So either have that open on a document ready for you to look at, or if you can print it out, even better. And you may want to cut them up as well to help you with the task later, but we'll get to that and I'll show you a different way of using it in case you're not able to do that. And then you also need this task sheet here, which has the different strips. This isn't on yours, but you will just need this part here, which is on a document as well. You may also need some paper to write some answers down, so make sure you've got that ready. So get all those things and then make sure you're ready to go before we move on. Okay, so I'm going to pop up today's slides, so you should be able to see or do now. So the first thing I'd like you to do is have a look at the examples on the board, and then you're going to be inserting the symbol greater than, less than, or equals. So I've put some examples up there to remind you in case you can't remember which way they go, but remember the biggest side is always going towards the biggest answer. Okay, so read each pair, 20 times 8 and 8 times 20. Which symbol needs to go in the box in between that pair. Okay, off you go and then come back when you are ready. Okay, hopefully you've managed to have a go at those. Let's have a look at the answers. So in the first one, 20 times 8 and 8 times 20, they were equal. In the second one, they were also equal. In number 3, 40 times 6 was greater than 20 times 8. In the next one, we had 2 times 90, which was greater. And then in the last one, they were equal. Okay, moving on to today's lesson. So we're going to be looking at recognizing equivalent fractions today. Now, we were looking at quantities on Friday and circling quantities of amounts. We started to look at equivalent fractions a little bit, but we're going to go into a bit more today using our fraction wall to help us recognize them. So let's quickly go through the words that we're going to need. Repeating after me. Numerator, denominator, fraction wall, whole, equivalent, factors, equal parts. Fantastic. So a few new words in there, which we'll come to as we're going through the lesson, and then some words that you've seen before. So hopefully you know numerator and denominator and equal parts and whole by now. So off we go. So the first thing we're going to do is look at these fraction strips that are on your board. Now, they're not exactly in the same order that you will see them on your fraction wall, but we're going to have a think about what each one is representing. So this one at the top is representing my whole, first of all. So I'm going to label that 1 whole. Next, I have 2 parts. So I know that my denominator is going to be 2. Now you should be able to see this on your fraction wall if you've got one in front of you. So I've got 1/2 and 1/2. So 2 halves equal 1 whole, 2/2. Okay, next I'm going to count how many parts there are. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know my denominator is going to be 4. So this is my quarters because it's broken up into 4 parts, 4 equal parts. Very important. So 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters. So you might be noticing so far that they're all the same size. So at the end, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Little bit of a clue there. I know that that is going to be 1/8 here, 1/8 here, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, and 1/8. So I've got 8 8s all together. And I had 4 quarters altogether, 4 quarters. Okay, so you might be able to notice something about this so far. Now, I want you to think about the key word in our walk today, equivalent. Can you remember what equivalent means? I'll give you a second to think. So equivalent means that they are the same. Equal, sounds like the word equal. So if you look at the bars, the red bar is the same size as the 2 blue bars. It's also the same size as my 4 yellow parts and as the green. Okay, so that's starting to tell me that these are equivalent fractions. So a whole is the same as 2 halves. A whole is also the same as 4 quarters. And a whole is also the same as 8 eighths. Now, we already know some of this from our work that we do in our arithmetic in the mornings. Okay, so hopefully you have remembered that. Now, let's look at another one. So this time I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 parts on the bottom. So that tells me that that one is split up into 12ths. Okay, I'm just going to label one. I'm not going to go along and label all for now, but altogether I would have 12 twelfths in that row. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's split into 6 parts, and I've got 6 in total. So each part is representing 1/6. So in total in that strip, I have 6 6. Okay, the next one I've got 1, 2, 3 this time. So that one is thirds that it's split up into. So each green part represents 1/3. So in total in that strip, I have 3 thirds. So I want you to think carefully what's going to go on this top bar now. If this has 3 thirds, it must equal 1 whole as well. Well done. So that one is not written in a fraction because that is representing my whole. So 1 whole is equal to 3 thirds, to 6 6, and 12 twelfths. Okay. So we're going to have a go at representing these in our fraction bars now. So you should have the sheet printed off that I showed you at the beginning, or have it in front of you. It might be a bit tricky to do it if you haven't got it printed off, but you can always draw them yourself or just discuss it through with someone at home. So I've given you some sentences that we're going to use as well while we're doing this, a little bit like when we do our talk task at school. So I'm going to do an example of 3 quarters. So the first thing that I need to think about if I'm doing 3 quarters is I need to find the bar that is split into quarters, because that's a really important bit I need to start with. So 4 tells me I need 4 parts. So I'm going to look at the bars. They might not be in the order that you do it because they're mixed up on the board. I'm going to count them. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, fantastic. This is the one that I need to use because it's in 4 parts. So that part is telling me that the denominator is telling me how many parts there are, and the numerator, remember, is telling me how many I need to shade. So there are 3 that I need to shade. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. So now I want to think about my sentences. So we should be saying these either out loud to yourself in your head, or if you've got an adult at home to help you, that would be fantastic. So the numerator is 3 because there are 3 parts that are shaded. The denominator is 4 because there are 4 parts in total. Okay, let's just look at one more together. So the next one I'm going to choose is, let's go with a tricky one. I'm going to do 7 twelfths. Okay. So I'm going to pop the visualizer back on. This time we're going to be looking for 7 twelfths. So the first thing I need to do is identify a bar which has 12 equal parts, because that is my denominator. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not going to be that one. 1, 2, 3. It's definitely not that one because that's got 3 parts. Let's check this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Fantastic. So there are 12 parts, so I can use this bar to represent 7/12. So I know my numerator is 7, so that's how many parts I'm going to be colouring in. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hopefully you can take your time and do something a little bit better than mine. Okay, so the numerator is 7 because there are 7 parts shaded, and the denominator is 12 because there are 12 equal parts in my bar. Okay, so what you're going to do, I'm going to pop the screen back on and you're going to work your way through and fill in all of those. Now you might notice that some of the bars, so this one has 12s and this one has 12s. Some of them are the same because there are a few with 12ths, for example. But you don't need to do them in any specific order. Don't worry about that. You can just pick one of the bars that has the right amount of parts and colour it in, okay? And make sure you label each bar. So I would label it down the side so that it's nice and clear. So this one is 7/12. And my first one was 3/4. So when we're posting this to Seesaw and checking our answers, it's nice and clear which one is representing which fraction. Okay, I'm going to pop the board back on. So I've already done a couple of those, but you can have a go at doing them ones as well, and then work your way through the different ones on the board. If you're doing it out loud with somebody and practicing at home, there are the different sentences there to help you as well. Okay, so pause the video, off you go, and then come back when you're ready. Okay, fantastic. Hopefully you managed to have a go at that. If you weren't able to print the sheet, it's absolutely fine if you've just talked it through with an adult or if you've drawn the bars yourself. Don't worry about that, and I'd love to see them on Seesaw, and maybe even if you wanted to video yourself talking about them, that would be absolutely fantastic. So I can't wait to see those later. Right, moving on to our next part. So we're going to explore equivalent fractions a little bit more now. So if you've got your fraction wall out in front of you, either looking at it, or if you've managed to cut it up, you might want to move it around so that you've put 1/2 and 3/6 together. So I have a bar that I'm going to show you. I have a fraction wall from school here. So we're going to be looking at 1/2 and 3/6. So I'm going to remove those just so it's easy for me to move it around. 1/2 and 3/6. So you can do the same with your fraction wall if you've cut it up. Or you should be able to clearly see, if I put my fraction wall here, that they're in line with each other. Okay, I can use something to cover it up to help me. Okay, but if you could cut it up, that would be fantastic. Okay, so 1/2 and 3/6. So you can clearly see those together. What do you notice about those ones? Just want you to have a think for a moment. What do you notice about them? Hopefully you have recognised that they are the same. They are equivalent because they are the same size. They are equal in size. So 1/2 is the same as 3/6. So that would be an equivalent fraction. So let's just look into that a little bit more. So 1/2, you can see that represented there in the picture. 1, the numerator, is 1/2 of 2, which we've written there. 1 is 1/2 of 2. The numerator is 1/2 of the denominator. Okay. Similarly with 3/6, 3, which is my numerator, is 1/2 of 6. So if we look at them in the representations, both of my squares here are the same size, okay, but this one has been split into 2, okay. One of the halves is coloured in, so that is showing me 1/2. In the next representation, it's split into 6 equal parts because I'm representing in 6 this time to show 3/6, and 3 of them are shaded. So there are 3 times as many parts in the second picture as in the whole, because this one is 2 and this one is 6, okay? 2 times 3 is 6, which is represented in this diagram here. 2 times 3 equals 6. And there are 3 times as many parts highlighted. So in this diagram, there are 1 of the parts that are highlighted, and this part is 3. Okay, it looks the same, but this one is broken down a little bit more. And 1 times 3 is 3. So what we can notice about that is that the numerator has been multiplied by 3, and the denominator has also been multiplied by 3. And it would also work if I went the other way and did division, because 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. So there is some sort of relationship between those that makes it equivalent. Now, we're not going to go into that lots today because we're going to be looking more with our fraction rule. So if that's a little bit confusing at the moment, don't worry, because we're going to be looking at it over the next few days. But hopefully the next task that we're going to do, you'll start to recognize that pattern. Okay, so you're going to be using your fraction rule a little bit more now to look for families of equivalent fractions. So I'm going to pop my visualizer back on. So I have my fraction rule here. So you should have one in front of you as well. You may have cut it out so that you can move it around in pieces like I've got here. That will be a little bit easier for you to recognize them. But if you're not able to physically move it around, you can either be looking at it on your computer, or you can use something to cover it up. Like I've got a whiteboard here, you could use a separate piece of paper, anything that you've got that will create a straight line to help you recognize your fractions, okay? So as you notice, it's very clearly separated all of the fractions with lines for me to see, okay? So I can see which ones are equal. I'm just using this to help me to make it more clear. So you're going to go through each fraction. I'm going to start with 1/2. And the reason I'm starting with 1/2, because if I started with a whole, then I can see that a whole is equal to 2 over 2, 3 over 3, 4 quarters, 5/5, 6/6, and so on, okay? I'm going to be looking at families of the unit fractions, which is ones that have a 1 on the numerator. Okay, so starting with 1/2, I'm going to make sure that I'm looking where half starts. I'm going to put it there so I can clearly see which ones are the same size. I'm not going to do it like this because that's not straight. I need to make sure it's in a nice straight line so it's nice and clear. Okay, so you might want to have some paper next to you as well so you can write your answers down. So I'm going to start looking down my fraction rule. Now I can see there's 1/3 here, but it doesn't quite line up with the next one. So it's not going to be equivalent to a 1/3 or 2/3 because that's not the same size as a half. If I keep going down my fraction rule, I can see that 1/4 and 1/4, 2 quarters are the same size. So I can say that 2 quarters is an equivalent fraction. Okay, now it's not just one of the fractions because I'm looking for families, remember, so a group of fractions that are equivalent. So I'm going to keep going. So if I go down, I can see 1/5, 1/5, 1/5, that's not equal. So fifths are not equal. If I keep going, oh, that one's definitely in line with a half. So 1, 2, 3, 6 is the same as 1/2. Okay, I'm going to keep going. I'm just going to make sure that's lined back up. Oh, sevenths doesn't fit. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Oh, I can see that eighths is in line. So I'm going to count how many. 1, 2, 3, 4 eighths is also the same as a half. Okay, keep going right to the end. Oh, ninths don't fit. Oh, fabulous. I've got another one there. So tenths is also the same size. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths. Okay, have I got any more? So 11ths doesn't fit in. I'm going to keep going. Oh, fantastic. I can see one more at the bottom there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. twelfths. Okay, I'm just going to quickly show you what that might look like if I was doing it on my fraction board. So I might get my half, so I can see that really clearly at the top, and then I might have tried a third. Oh no, that's not the same size, so I'm going to put that one back. I'm going to try quarters now. Fantastic, I can see that's the same. Fifths. No, that one's not going to fit. I'm going to keep going. I can see that one's the same. I knew that sevens didn't fit, so I have eights here. Oh, that one fits perfectly. I've got my tenths and my twelfths. So if you're feeling really creative, you could take some pictures, or you may even want to draw that out to represent it. So once you've done one family, you're going to move on to the next family. So when you're on the next one, you're going to look at 1/3. So we're just working our way down the unit fractions. And you might find there's not as many for some of the others, but we'll talk about why when we come back in a moment. So I'm going to add 1/3 on next, and then you're going to go off and find those. When you found all of the ones that are same as 1/3, moving on to 1/4, and then moving on to 1/5, and so on. You're going to keep working your way down until you can't find any more. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Do your best to use your fractional. If you have got it cut out and you can move it around, fantastic. If you haven't, then you can see what I've done there, drawing lines to help me. So have a go, and then when you're ready, you can come back to the board, and then we will go through the answers together. Okay, good luck. Off you go. Okay, hopefully you've managed to have a go at that. Now, I want you to think, did you notice any patterns while you were doing this? And if you didn't have time to think about that, then you can pause the video and have another think. I just want you to have a look at the families and think, is there anything about the way the numbers are in order? Or do you notice anything about the times tables that those numbers are in? What patterns do you notice? Okay, hopefully you've had a little think about that. Now, you may have noticed something, especially about my first one here. They are all on the bottom in the same times tables. There are all even numbers in the 2 times tables. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Let's have a look at the other ones and the answers that you should have got. So these are all the fact families there that you should have come up with, hopefully. I don't think I've missed any, but do let me know later if I have on Seesaw, or I'm sure my class always spot my mistakes and tell me in our briefing. I think I've managed to get them all on there. So you should have got 1/3, 2 6, 3 9ths, 4 12ths, 1/4, 2 8ths, 3 12ths, and so on. So you might be starting to see the pattern, as I've just said in the top one here: 3, 6, 9, 12, 4, 8, 12, 5, 10, 6, 12. What did you notice about the 7ths? Did they show up in any fact families there, in any equivalent fraction families? No, they didn't. And maybe that's because I didn't have any other multiples of 7 there, because I didn't go to 14. Maybe that would be in the fraction family for 1/7. We'd have to have a look at that, okay, which we're going to be exploring in the next few lessons. So hopefully you can also see, as we discussed earlier, that if I look at the numerator and denominator, it starts to multiply again by the same number as we looked at in the previous slide. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 3 is 9, and 1 times 3 is 4, and so on. So let's have a look at that a bit more in detail. So I've got my fact family here, for 1/2 and 1/3. So I'm saying 45 over 90, 45 90ths, is the same as 1/2. So earlier, if you remember, I said 1 is half of 2. What do you notice about 45 and 90 then? Why is that 1/2? Hopefully you've recognised that 45 is half of 90. So if the numerator is half of the denominator, then that is showing me 1/2. So I could say 10 20ths is also a half. I wonder if you can come up with some more examples when we finished. Similarly, for a third, you may notice that 1 is a third of 3. 5 goes into 15, 3 times as well. 4 can be divided into 12 3 times. 2 can be divided into 6 3 times. Let's just quickly have a look at that on our whiteboard. So as we looked at earlier, 1 times 45 is 45. And 2 times 45 is 90. 1 times 5 is 5, and 3 times 5 is 15. Just going to pop, oh, we can't see that one there. There we go. So we're going to look at this in a bit more detail as the lessons goes on, but I just wanted to come back to that so that you can start to see the pattern. So if I've multiplied the numerator by the same number and the denominator by the same number, it's going to give me an equivalent fraction. So if you're feeling confident, maybe you could go away and start thinking about some bigger equivalent fractions that I could find. Because as long as I've multiplied it by the same number, it's going to give me an equivalent fraction of the smaller fraction that I've started with. Okay? Fantastic. So, hope you found that manageable today. I know some people have been finding some of the fractions a bit tricky because you're at home, but do your best. Post your work on Seesaw. The teachers will be giving you feedback, and if there's anything that you're really struggling with, we can go through it in the meetings with you as well. Great work, everyone. Keep it up, and I will see you tomorrow for tomorrow's lesson. Bye.